It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh. I'm the guy they call Smoker Broker, which is significant in the spring because we start smoking a ton more than we do in the winter. And I'm not talking smoking other stuff, vaping and all that. I'm talking about smoking barbecue, big time barbecue guy. I've been doing it for a long time. Great pastime of mine. I wish I could do it a lot more than I get the time to do. But that is where the name Smoker Broker comes from. And this is the season. You know, we're back. And let me tell you, after a year hiatus with COVID, we are going to come back big as we get into the spring. I will say, and I wrote this down because I wanted to talk about it because it's tough on me and it's linked to all the stuff that we have with COVID right now, but it's hard because we are getting back into it. Like our events last year, every one of them was canceled. They are all back on. As of right now, they're all back on. The cities have approved them. And these are events where there's a lot of people. And it's tough because you still have a lot of this country that is very hesitant about what we are doing with COVID and is it done and are we at herd immunity yet? And we're not at herd immunity yet. And we still have a lot of people that need to be vaccinated. But anybody out there right now, this past weekend alone, no matter where you went, you can see the difference. You can see that people have gotten to where they're trying to get back to normal. And that is causing what I mentioned a few shows ago, a culture war. Because you have those that are like, this isn't done. And then you have those who are like, it is done as far as I'm concerned. And you get a nasty, this country's always been divided. As far as I'm concerned, it always will be. There's just too many diverse opinions on what is right and what is wrong. And COVID falls into, if you've ever really looked at it, everything that happens in your life, there are always two sides that are viciously against each other. Think about the simplistic things. For instance, you ever seen those, I've got good friends that are watching that they'll object to this, but I'm not going to side with which one so they won't know which side I'm on. But the people with like a loud motorcycle or a loud truck, right? When you hear those people, you ever heard them when they're revving that really super loud where it might even shake your house? Now, I got some friends that have those and they love them. And I'm not going to say whether I love them or not. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I've got a bunch of other friends that can't stand it. Like it just drives them crazy when somebody does that. Now that's something simplistic in life. It is. It's something simplistic. But there are so many people that have different opinions of those. There are so many people that love that sound. And it's free. It's a free country. They can do whatever they want. And then there's others that are like, yeah, but it's invading my privacy and I don't like it. Why is it that those cars are even allowed to have that sound on them when people know that the whole purpose of that thing is so that it's loud? So it's interesting. COVID, not anywhere near compared to something like that, but the opinion side of it, it's 50-50 right now. It's 50-50 on whether we should continue this separation and smaller crowds and mask versus whether we should have them on. So look, I want to get back in other opinions. So go into the stores right now, the grocery store chains, and especially in Texas. Texas has been pretty adamant about trying to push getting out of this quicker than most. In fact, we were the first one that said we were getting away from the mask. The national brand chains that are not in Texas were very clear that, hey, the masks stay on. So if you go into the store right now in Texas, which is where most of our primary listeners are, even though we do stream across the country and world for that matter. Most of our listeners are in Texas. When they go in right now, the store, I mean, Albertsons has it like they want there to be no mistake. Mask is on. They've got like 3 signs, and they actually have someone on that actually does this when you come in. Now, I've already seen in the few times that I've been in there, I've already seen arguments in the times I walk in. The times that I walk in where I see someone where that, and I will admit, that little 16 or 17-year-old, it's kind of hard to have them do this to you. I'm like, first of all, don't talk to me like that. And second of all, maybe I do or do not agree with you telling me to do that. I'm not saying I'm personally. But I've seen the argument break out. And this has been discussed nationally pretty vibrantly that the stores have the right, and if you don't like it, you can leave. That's fine, whatever it is. But the point, there's still too many people out there that are very protective of that, and that includes organizations. Rewind back to last week. So we go to it's my son's birthday, and this is actually kind of a cool story because it really did mark COVID. So for those of you not in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the Grandscape is a really big development they've put up north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's got all the shops and all those types of things, and it's got one of the Andretti Entertainment Centers put themselves in there. This is one of those massive like main event type of things, but it has the indoor go-karts. It's actually pretty cool. God, is it expensive? Good Lord. I don't know how people can afford to go in there. I mean, literally, I'm pretty certain that was $600 for 4 kids for that night. Yeah, I'm not kidding either. And that wasn't everything, by the way. So anyways, go in there. We go into the venue. Before we get to the Andretti Center, there's an outdoor concert. There probably were about 7 to 8,000 people in that venue. No mask, side-by-side strangers, okay? You go into the Andretti, which is kids, which are disgusting, them and their germs, and they flat out tell you when you go in, you don't have to have the mask if you don't want it. I was like, wow, that's one way to take it. So you go in and it's exactly what you'd expect. It's like Six Flags in there. Kids licking shit, touching, just gross. That's the last place you want to be with germ. And they're putting the helmets on. I love it too. You go there. Those guys are actually putting Lysol. I'm like, you really think that that's going to do a damn bit of good if someone is sick? But nonetheless, that's out there. So you've got stores that are like, oh no, mask. And you've got schools that are like, mask, no. But then you've got that. And that's tough. It is a war. It is a cultural war as to what is right and what is wrong. I will tell you that I get the school thing for right now. I heard someone make a good comment the other day. They said that, well, look, this was someone who was very supportive of the mask going away. There's a high school executive, one of the high board members. And they go, we're only like 90 days from school being out. They've been doing it all year. Let's just keep the damn mask on. It's got to be, if we all agree that if we can get to midsummer, everybody that wants to be vaccinated has been vaccinated, and there has to be some type of herd immunity that, hey, look, it should be more isolated than it is actually happening. So most of the schools, in fact, I think all the Texas schools rule that that's just the easiest way. There's just no reason to risk it. And then, of course, next year they'll decide on what they're going to do. I will tell you one thing that bothers me. This is something a lot of people don't know. It's a good part of the show just for just general information, and it's a part that sickens me. And if you don't know it, here it comes. Some of those schools right now, I've caught wind that they're talking about maybe going and staying virtual for some students going into the fall. Now, most of America agrees that the kids should be in school. Most of America agrees that this past year has been damaging fact, I would argue that's probably been, outside of the 500,000 people that died, which is awful. I would argue that's been the most damaging thing. What has happened to the kids that have been out for a year, that have learned to not have to get up in the morning and do things they don't want to do? Because I can tell you what I've seen my kids do. And they get their work done in an hour and a half, and then they're screwing around the rest of the day. And I have not been a fan of that. In fact, we have had plenty of arguments about when they go and when they don't.
That sounds like my work day.
It's very similar. So they're talking about letting that happen. So I hear them, I'm like, how? I go, by fall, it's no different than the flu. I go, how could you even consider that? Well, guess what? The schools have noticed when their kids go virtual, at least some of the schools, guess what they get to count as attendance? And guess what also happens if it's not just in your area, but the school opens up, it can be anywhere around the area, and they can get those people to go virtual. Guess what happens to funding? It goes up. So now you got schools who are looking at their finance and saying, well, hey, look, we might want to keep that virtual. And that, y'all, is bullshit. And I don't cuss a lot on the show. It's mine. I can do whatever the hell I want. And it streams. And I try to be professional most of the time. But I'm telling you, that stuff about schools looking at whether they get revenue from this is bullshit. That is damaging, no matter what anybody says, for those kids not going in that school. And to sit there and start counting. And this is fact, by the way. Now, I know for a fact those schools out there right now, there's a revenue conversation about whether those masks go on or not. Y'all, that's just not the way that was designed to be. And that's a big problem. And notice I stay pretty neutral most of the time. I am not neutral on that subject. You can come on the show if you want to talk to me. We can fight all day long on that one. I'll give you a million reasons why those kids are supposed to be in school and learning. And it's not just necessarily the subject matter. It's the matter of them getting up, doing something they don't like to do, because that is what, unfortunately, is the rest of our lives. Getting up, going to a job that most of us don't like. I'm fortunate because I love the job that I have. But I know, look, I come from corporate. Everybody knows, and I hate corporate. Majority of America has to go into a job that they really don't like. And that's what that school teaches them. It teaches them to do that. And right now, you have over God knows how many millions of kids that have been taught that there is an option, that they don't have to necessarily go in every day, that there could be a phantom work day if they don't want to do it. And that is damaging. And God knows the studies that will be done over the next few years. You know, I've said it for the entire last 6 months that the PhDs that are coming out of COVID will just be just astronomical, from the effects of business, economics, health, and the effect on children. It's going to be unbelievable, you know. So interesting stuff out there. It hit home to me. And the reason why I said it was kind of interesting. So last year, that Andretti Center, we were the first day, the opening weekend, and it was the weekend before COVID just publicly went all disaster. In fact, it was enough for us to be just horribly worried about. God knows how many of us and those kids had that. So we got that open, and then it closed down, and it literally has been closed that entire year. And we went back, and the thing that was interesting, it was the same as it was last year. There was no difference between last year versus this year, except some people actually had the mask on. And when I say some, I'm going to tell you, it was the minority of people that went in there that had that mask on. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, even in my own family, my folks are still they both got the shots, and they're still like, we need to wait this out. And you know what? Power to them. And everybody's opinion is different. That was the whole point of this conversation. But man, it is vast. It is vast out there. So anyway, something we're continuing to deal with one way or another. Whatever your opinion of this whole thing is, it is coming to an end as we get closer to July. President's come out and announced that the vaccine will be available to everybody by May. And y'all, that's a month away. Most of the people that are critical have already had the shot. And come May, most people, when they get to June or July, they're going to have had enough with the mask. Whether you believe in it or not, that's a fact. They're going to flat out say, hey, look, whatever the reason for this is, it's not medical anymore. So if you are one of the people that have the mask and you're defensive of the mask, which that's fine, I believe in that, there's a lot of belief, I understand there. One way or another, even you have to admit, come a couple months, that's going to be done. And if you don't, that's even a more strange conversation on where we're going with this. Because then we start getting into do we have a paranoid America? Do we have a paranoid world? And I don't, that's not my opinion to make. I can tell you what my opinion of it is. Brutal.
Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah. Yay! Hey, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I always remember St. Patrick's Day because our anniversary is the day before St. Patrick's Day. I don't know why we chose to get married before St. Patrick's Day. Dina's not a heavy drinker. Maybe I am, so I don't know. But it was St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patrick's Day. Same part of the conversation. We did notice that more of the events happened for St. Pat's this past weekend. And they opened up some of the parades and said that was a no-go last year. So we are moving back into what we consider to be a new norm. I will tell you something else that's changed to a lot of our broadcast over the last year, where all of us have the belief that life has changed forever. And I was one of those. I'm not so sure that's true anymore. I'm not so sure because what I'm seeing is a massive return to back to normal. Now, if you want to talk about office sizes changing and the virtual work environment that has increased, that's possible, but I've said this for years, that's not COVID. That was coming long before COVID. In fact, 98% of the corporations were moronic for never going to this before. Majority of the work can be done virtual. That's never been a question. So if you can say COVID changed our lives forever because of that, I don't agree with that. That was coming no matter which way you looked at it. I have to admit, I still am interested in listening to the CEOs that say that in person, the creativity is still better. I'm like, I just don't understand that. I'm saying the same damn thing I would here if I was in front of you. So I just don't understand that. I get that there's maybe some pieces of work that have to be in person, and that's a limited amount. But the ones that say they have to get them all back in, I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's necessarily the key or not. But anyways, new world for some people, not a new world for others. Return to normal. I will side on the fact that I think we're going to return to a more norm here in the next month or two, especially in Texas, since we're already in front of the curve. All right. We're going to talk about something that I enjoy today more than anything because it's how I got into the industry. And this show is going to be geared more towards the general public and your friends and your family who have talked about possibly doing this, that they've considered, and it's something that they want to do. So this is going to be a good show for you to pass on to share for people who are in this boat, because we're going to talk about things that most people don't talk about. Now, before we get into that, I always like to talk about our sponsors. We have great sponsors on the show, and we appreciate them sponsoring our show. We do business with these folks. So I want to go ahead and get that out of the way so we can spend a good 40 or so minutes solidly talking about our subject today. Brent?
All right. So our first sponsor is Mr. George DiGianni. In 2018, there were 120,000 realtors in Texas. 2 years later, in 2020, there are 140,000. That's almost 10,000 new realtors in Texas each year. Almost every realtor George DiGianni has met doesn't know their customer-centric value proposition and distinct competencies that set them apart from hundreds of thousands of realtors in Texas. George is the only mortgage lender who helps realtors excel beyond their current level of success by incorporating his academic knowledge from Harvard and 29-year business prowess in a consultative session. Guess what? It's free. You can read George's reviews at georgedigianni.com and learn more about what differentiates him from every other lender you've ever met on my show. Just that copy right there makes me feel like a moron reading that, because there are so many bigger words than I ever use on a daily basis. So,
well, hey, look, so George is an educated guy.
Yeah.
He has a degree from Harvard, so that makes sense that his wording should be a little higher than yours.
That's right. That's why I don't write copy for his show. All right. Next, we have Mr. Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. He is our go-to home inspector. We, of course, give our clients a number of inspectors to choose from, but Martin is the inspector we prefer. He is always on time or early, finishes in a timely manner, gets the report to you the same day, and all reports are color-coded, red for serious issues and blue for minor things to look at. You can always book him at bpginspections.com or reach him at 817-401-3240. That's Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. And finally, last but not least, Greg Holdberg is with Liberator Health Insurance. Your simple solution to affordable healthcare is here. Join the Liberator movement and take control of your healthcare. $5 million life maximum per policy. Customize your healthcare plan to fit your healthcare and budget needs. Use any doctor or hospital without a penalty. For additional savings, use the PPO network at no additional charge. Teladoc is included in all plans. Save 40-60% on your premiums. The Liberator deal of the week, a young realtor for $190 a month. That includes dental. Now offering a health savings account Visa debit card plan. Receive $2 of medical benefits for every $1 you contribute to your account. And that includes telemedicine calls at no additional cost. As an independent agency, Liberator is committed to transforming healthcare in Texas through innovative healthcare plans that are affordable and rich in benefits, just like me. For more information and to get a quick quote, call or text Greg Holdberg, independent health insurance broker at 214-886-4688 or visit them at liberatorhealthinsurance.com.
Yeah, great sponsors, all of them. Love all those
I'm
guys.
affordable and rich in benefits. That's what I am.
Yeah, we don't put anybody on the show that we think is a jerk, So
Why am
these
I
guys.
here?
Well, why should good comment there. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my buddy out there. I don't know if he's still watching on. A good competitor friend of mine, Doug Smith. I saw that he put a comment out there calling me a legend. I love it. He's a great guy. But he runs a competing firm. I want to say he calls it DHR Realty now. But he's a super guy, and we do run different firms all together. But I love the fact that he keeps up with me, and I think very well of him. And he's doing great with his new firm, and we always wish him well. Very complimentary of each other. But I love these. Taking a second to watch the show. Doug, love you, brother. Thank you for taking a peek out there. So when it comes to part-time agents, the traditional real estate brokers doesn't like that. They've been built on full-time real estate, and they believe that a full-time real estate is more efficient, better, and the general public, their perspective would probably be the same, right? That if they want an agent, they want their agent to be full-time. And I agree with that common sense version of it, but it's the reality of understanding the industry that makes you question, is that necessarily true? Okay? And what I mean by that is, do you believe that a majority of the agents out there are full-time? Now, I can tell you, I already have the industry answer. I already know they're not.
Well, I think you need to define what's full-time. What is full-time?
What's full-time? That's right. Do you really think that a lot of the agents that make 100 to 200K, do you really believe that they're full-time? Some of them are, but not all of them. I can tell you that. Not all of them are. And they're pretty damn good real estate agents. Brent kind of alluded to the point I'm making. It'll be the first takeaway of today, is that my peers would tell you that they consider me to be the expert in part-time real estate, because that's how I got started, and we're talking about that. And they say that politely. They do. They respect me for what I did and how I started. But I always tell everybody, when they ask, they go, "What do you define as part-time?" I'm like, "See, you got it all wrong. It's not. The question is not, are they part-time? The question really is, are they full-time? Is there really such a thing as the full-time agent?" Now, there are some people that are watching. There are some brokers that will watch, and Doug's not the only one. There are other brokers that watch the show too, and there are some that will say it absolutely matters, that they're better off at full-time. You can never make it part-time. And they tell the agents that too. So my response to them is, how the hell did I get here? Now, I don't need to hear that you'll never make it as part-time, because that's just a flat-out, bold-faced lie. I can count hundreds of agents that made it starting out part-time, and you better believe I'm one of them. He's one of them too. All right? Yep. And we do run what's one of the largest groups in the country. So don't tell me that you'll never make it part-time. In fact, I actually think there should be an ethical hit for someone who tells an agent that. I'm not afraid to say that too to any broker friend of mine. If you're one of those people that says that, you should be ashamed of yourself. That's not true. Those part-time agents can be damn good agents down the road. In fact, I would even argue with you that I think that The more intelligent agent starts part-time because that person knows damn good and well the first year they are not going to make a load of money, because they know starting any good business, they're starting here and they have to build it. And that building doesn't occur in a 12-month time frame.
Nope.
Hell, I don't even know if it's a 24-month time frame. But there you have brokers all day long. What, Brent?
Or 120-month time frame.
Is that 5 years, Brent?
No, that would be 10.
My math's slow sometimes.
But I think we kind of have to differentiate what do you consider part-time? And the way I consider it is you have another form of income besides real estate. And it's not necessarily the hours.
Streams.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brent and I are experts in multiple income streams. In fact, Brent, that might be a project for you. Maybe nice to maybe co-author a book together on multiple income streams, because we do know a lot about multiple income streams.
We'll call it crossing streams.
Important. What's that?
We'll call it crossing streams.
Crossing streams, Jesus. How did I get this guy on my show?
No one else showed up.
Yeah, right. That's the real answer. He's quick. You gotta admit he's quick. So it is a question of where do we define the line? Now, look, I'll state the obvious. The more hours you put, does it give you a chance to be better and quicker? Sure. Of course, anything that you do, the more hours you put, you have a better chance. But here's the problem with that. That doesn't mean the other person can't have success too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe their success is easier attained than yours is. Maybe they're able to get more people to go with them than you spinning your wheels. Some would argue that those people have to work their asses off 80 hours a week just to get a few deals. Maybe they're not as good at what they do. You know, that old thing, quality versus quantity. There's a lot of people that suffer from that. I used to work with a guy that he did that. He'd get there at 6. He'd leave like at 7:30. He was viewed very positively for his work ethic, and I'll give him that. He had a good disciplinary view as to what he needed to be. But the problem is that he probably didn't work that entire time. A lot of times he was sitting there doing stuff that really didn't have to be done. Hence why he was there till 7:30. So you can have people that are saying they're working 50, 60 hours a week. That doesn't mean a damn thing. The person that worked 15 might have done just as much at 15 as they did in the 30 or 40. My wife's a good example. I'll tell Dina, she is an expert when it comes to getting work done quicker and more efficient. Dina can take a 40-hour-a-week job and probably do it in 5 hours. Because when she sets into it, she's zeroed in. No BS, nobody at the door, no one passing through the cubes. She's a good example of what I'm talking about. Real estate agents are the same. It just depends on what type of person they are and their work ethic as to whether they're going to have to work that amount of time.
Well, how many times do we meet new agents and they are under the impression that when they get into real estate, they say, oh, well, I know I need 6 months of income set aside in the bank to be able to get going, because you're not going to earn for 6 months. And it's like, well, first of all, it's going to be longer than 6 months usually.
Right.
And two, look at the stress you're putting on yourself. No wonder the majority of real estate agents quit in their first year.
All right, so let's talk about that, because that's another takeaway from the show. Brent's right. The amount of people that quit in the first year is sickening. And it's intentional. And it's the brokerage's fault, because they pump these people up. Rah, 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 telling them they're going to make all this money, because that's what America wants to hear. Easy money. I only have to do a little bit and I can make $100K. And that's the general rule when it comes to real estate. You get all these younger kids in there. And they don't have to be younger. They can be older too. That's me. That's what I want. And then they get into it. They pass their test. Most people can pass their test at some point. They're in it for 6 months. Somebody told them, that's like in a position like me, that they can make $100K Yet 6 months later, they hadn't sold one thing. Their parents even went with somebody else. They have nobody in the pipeline. The broker keeps billing them because they're good at that. They get discouraged and they quit.
Well, and they also don't get answers when they have those questions.
That's right. We're going to talk about that too.
Naming names.
Now, here's the cardinal sin. Here's the cardinal sin. Here's the tragedy of all this. 83% of the agents, they're going to make that quit in 6 months. The tragedy is every one of those people, they're not 2 years away from being able to make that decision. You cannot make the decision on whether you're going to be a good agent at least until 2 years. And for some, it's longer. So for those that quit inside of 6 months, that's just awful. Good takeaway today for anybody who, for those of you who are dual career, which is what we call part-time in real estate industry, if you are dual career and you're at that point where you're thinking about quitting and you're in that time frame, you're a fool, all right? Because you're not anywhere close. I'm not saying you're wrong maybe eventually, but you're damn well not right at that point. Now, look, I've done it for 21 years now. Believe me, I know the amount of time this takes. And it is not a year. I'm even getting close to argue it's not 2 years. So a good takeaway from today, if you're a manager or a team lead, or you actually are someone who has dual career and you're thinking about that, you shouldn't be thinking about that. You should be thinking about how can I at least do one deal to cover for the cost that I've had, so that way the next time one comes through, this is a positive experience. And I'm going to give you another little hint too. Everybody in this country is capable of selling a house. It's not that difficult. Everybody can do it if they want to. For those that quit and say they lost whatever $2,000 to get into this, which is about what it cost, that's on you. Because you should have been able to do it. You should have at least been able to do one or two. You might not have been a mega producer, but you damn well should have been able to sell two.
But if you don't have any income, how are you going to survive? You know, a lot of times they just quit just because they can't afford it. You know, they don't have that other income.
So let's talk about that, because that's the heart of the show today. That's what we believe. We believe that we know it's going to be a slow go. We know that it's going to take them a while. And we know that a majority of the agents, and I would say the same percentage, 83%, ironic it's 83 because it's the same 83 that quit. We know that 83% of those people that get in probably don't have the financial means to do this, more or less pay to get into it, more or less be able to handle the ongoing fees. So common sense should dictate, if you know you're not going to have a ton of deals in your first year, and I'm telling you, for the majority of agents out there, that's a true statement. Yes, asterisk, there are a few that are superstars when they come in. And these are, ironically, the people that you hear do the recruiting spiel.
You've got a couple on our team.
Yeah, it does. It can happen.
Wasn't me.
I like the brokers. I like the brokers who go in and they bring that person. They're like, ask Danny. Danny has sold 200K. And everybody's like, oh, I want to be like Danny. But then they forget that Danny's, dad is a preacher of one of the largest churches in the country. And big surprise that Danny is the one that gets put up on the church billboard there. By the way, that's a true statement with words changed around for one of my individuals, right? So, yeah, it happens. But to sit there and think that someone comes in and they follow the rules and they just become superstars, whatever. Now, there are a lot of brokers that would say, hey, you shouldn't say that. They'd be like, you shouldn't do that because that is what we preach and what we're trying to do. I'm like, yeah, congratulations on trying. But the fact remains that most of them don't do it. And any broker who disagrees and wants to show me how many of their agents first year come on and killed it, come on. You come on the show and you just show me those results, because I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't happen very often. If you take the average office and it has 100 agents in it, I'm going to tell you right now, 90 of those agents are not going to make the kind of money they think they were going to make in that first year. In fact, some of them would barely even sell a deal, if any. And here's the thing, that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I come off as pessimistic about your first year. But as pessimistic as I am about your first year, I'm that much more optimistic by the end of your second, your third, and your fourth. You want the golden rule about real estate? The golden rule about real estate is most of the people that get past the first year eventually will stay. Because it doesn't get any worse than that. You're learning, you're not making the income, you're short. Doesn't get any worse than that.
And the bills are due at Christmas time.
Oh, so awful. The board, shame on the boards. Shame on the boards for making a $500 payment due during Christmas. So we have these problems out there. If you're working, though, that's not as much of an issue. If you continue the job that you're working at and you do real estate on the side, you're not so worried about the income not coming in. But you are still doing the training, especially if you're with a broker that caters to it, i.e. someone like us. You can go to joinswr.com and it'll tell you how we cater to you that way. All right? You find someone like that, it's very possible. In fact, not only is it possible, in my opinion, it's the preferred way. Because those are the people that I think actually have a chance. When I first started and I interviewed people, I only wanted the full-time person. I wanted the person that came in with an expensive suit that said, I want to make $200K this year and I'm going to work 60 hours a week. I go, hire. That's what we want. That's what we're looking for. A year after, I'm like, that's the last person we want. That person has no chance. They're going to immediately not like the fact that they can't make instant money. They're going to realize their suit's not doing them a damn bit of good. They're not going to do what they need to do this.
And they're going to complain.
Going to quit. Burn and turn. That's what we call it, burn and turn. Whereas the person who comes in with another job said, I have to have this job because I have to keep the lights on and feed my kids. But I want to try to pick this up, and I'm pretty sure I can do it. That person, they got a chance. Now, the other side of this is we have a lot of agents who are full-time when they go into it, but they're realist about it. They actually have money set aside, or they have a spouse that produces a lot of income that allows them to do that. That's okay, too. The point is you have to have it. You have to have one of the two. Other than that, you're fighting against the odds. You ever gone to Vegas and, blackjack's considered the most favorable game in the casino? It's really not that favorable. Most people lose at blackjack in the end. And that's a 50, what is that? Did I say it's 52.48%?
Right. Have you seen the casinos?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Have you seen them? Yeah.
They don't lose.
Yeah, we're not talking about 52.48. We're talking about much higher percentage, So we want the ability for that person to go in and have a chance at what they're doing. We want them to go through. I tell you how I got started. What, Brent?
No, go ahead.
I was going to tell you how I got started in this because it is how I eventually formed the SWR group, and that's had hundreds of agents mimic it throughout the years, and that continue to be a stronghold and one of the largest influences in the Keller Williams environment with the group that we have because of what we offer. So I worked with the executive teams at folks like Foot Action, Foot Locker, and Just for Feet. I did fairly well when I was young, right? Just for Feet. Just for Feet, for those you don't know, is like they're like the Dick's Sporting Goods. They're big box athletic. That was you don't see the Just for Feets anymore. And that's how I got here many years ago. Because of executives who didn't know how to run that company, it took them less than a year to throw that in the toilet. And the people who are, in those mid-management and executive levels they're the ones that conveniently get thrown out because of someone else's stupid mistake. So I learned a couple things when I was young at that point. One, I'm not ever going to let that happen again. I'm not ever going to let anybody else have the decision power of what my career is, which was one of the most fortunate things that ever happened to me in my life, because I learned early what most people learn at my age now is that is not something to find out when you're 50, 60 years old. that you're going to lose everything that you work for because of some jackass that didn't know what they were doing. This happens daily. And we've talked about loyalty too. There is no loyalty when it comes to a corporation. You could be there for 30 years, be the friend of the CEO, they'll let you go tomorrow and they won't think twice about it. And I know from experience, I know from friends, I've just seen it, and it's a fact. You have to have something on the other side that you can go through. So I went and I got basically thrown out. I was lucky. I'm going to call it a severance. But it really wasn't, because I still had to go into work, but I only had to do it every once in a while. I didn't have to do it full time. So I decided I have to do something else during that time frame. We had done some investing at the time. We had been familiar with flips and rentals. And I did like that part. I was able to see the bridge between finance, which is what my background is in accounting, versus real estate. I saw a very similar pattern, that it's not sales, it's business. Anybody who follows me knows I don't like being called a sales guy. I hate sales. Even though it's my primary living, I hate it. I'm more on the education and the expertise part than I am on selling somebody something. Anybody who knows me that will tell you too. I don't like selling. So I liked it enough to where I'm like, you know what, I'll screw around with this. But I knew I had to have the other income coming in. No way I could have not had that severance and done this other job. But I started off just, certainly not being hypocritical, just like I've been talking about. I think I sold 4 houses my first year. I want to say I made like $20,000, which is terrible. But the second year, I almost quadrupled that. I want to say I made like, I don't know, 90 or so thousand. And mine is a good success story. Every year after, I doubled, tripled, 4 or 5, whatever you call 6 or 7 times. It was eventually a lot more than I ever made before. But the point is, it took time. It wasn't overnight. And it really wasn't until year 2 to year 3 that I started to make even close to what I made before. Now, I'm a good example, and I preach this a lot because I find it hypocritical when people run companies and they're not the ones who started it, and they're not the ones who lived it. They're just the ones who are going by it, which, by the way, that's about 99% of corporate America. We started Smoker Broker's show on not only being real estate, but entrepreneurial. And whereas we don't talk as much about the entrepreneurial side, I'm going to tell you right now, nothing has changed for my love of corporate. I can't stand them. And primarily it's because of the way they run it. Most of the time, the person who's running the corporation is not the person who knows what the corporation does. And if you want to know why so many corporations fail or go out of business, that is probably one of the underlying reasons. Because you put some idiot who's a CFO finance person who's not an idiot in finance, but you put them over operations and logistics and all these other things that they don't know a damn thing about. God forbid the store operation. And the next thing you know, they're having trouble. Big surprise that a company struggles when the guy that runs it, and when I say guy, I mean guy or gal, when the guy runs it does not expertise in that particular field, right? Those are the problems that we see out there. And when we go through, you want to embrace and know what you're doing when you go through. You want to be able to have something else that's out there. We talked about multiple income streams. You want to have an option. You need to have something else that you think you can do good at. We believe that real estate is the number one best supporting income that you can have if you have another job. We also believe that it'll eventually become your number one source of income if you do it right. But the point of this show, we know damn good and well that you can succeed at part-time real estate. You do not have to do it full-time. I'll tell you a nasty secret about a lot of my crew. I would tell you over half the 6-figure agents I've ever had, I doubt they work more than 15 hours a week. I don't know whether I'm ashamed of that or proud of it. But what I do know, it's not my prerogative to tell them what they should do and what they should not do. They got into this for freedom because they hated someone telling them what to do. And you better believe I'm a supporter of that. And if they're going to make that kind of money working 15 hours a week, I don't think many people would argue. If you take the dollar per hour what they're working, that's a pretty good life.
You know,
we're not even talking about the. Go ahead, Brent.
No, one of the questions though that gets brought up to me during interviews is, okay, so let's say I'm a new agent and I'm going to get into it. I have a full-time job. I'm working 40 hours. How can I make that work? Like, how many hours do I have to work? What do I do about if somebody wants to see a house while I'm working? Like, what do I do?
Right, so,
right? Those are big concerns that people have.
So I love that you brought that up, because that is the number one concern out there, and I want to address it too. Everybody's always paranoid that their real estate is going to interfere with their work. Well, Brent, when do most of the country, when do they typically work? What are their hours?
Well, 9 to 5.
Yeah. Right? 8 to 5, 9 to 5, the day, right?
Yep.
If majority of the American workforce works during the day, then what can they not do?
Can't see homes.
They can't see homes. So it's amazing to me how many people worry, well, what happens if somebody needs me when I'm at work? I'm like, do you really think that that's probably going to happen? When do you think that that person's going to be able to look? And I will tell you the few times that it does happen, because it does occasionally happen, especially with the
now more than ever
time off, we find someone to help support you with that.
Yep.
That probably should be 2% of the time.
Yep. It is a little different now with the urgent pressing need to see a house as soon as it hits the market. That's changed a little bit. But we, like in our firm, we have a showing team that will go out and show for you if you're unavailable. I mean, there's always a support system.
Yeah, the support, and that's what it matters. What broker you're with is that in ours, we do have a support group that was intentionally built for that situation. You know why that was? Because I lived it. That actually happened to me many times when I had actually had a closing, and the closing was starting to go bad, and I'm at work presenting in front of 100 people, and my phone's blowing up with, we have an emergency. Now, I didn't have that support network, and that was extremely stressful. That caused me shingles when I was 31 years old. You're not supposed to get shingles when you're 31 years old. True story, by the way. So you want to know how we got here? You're welcome for me getting shingles, because that's the type of crap that I didn't want any. What an awkward way.
Is that the quote? Is that the quote of the show?
But it is true. It is true. That actually happened. And that was an underlying growth period for SWR that I'm like, I will never let an agent ever get to where they're that stressed, more or less even worried about it, versus something like that. It was a growth time. And that's why when I start talking about, we get this fear that what am I going to do when someone needs help? And I'm like, you don't have to worry about that. I've already done that. I've already been there, and I know how horrible it is, and I'm not going to let it happen. So you don't have to worry about those issues. It's the systems that are in place. So that's right. One of the big hesitations to part-time is, well, I won't be able to get there if somebody needs me. The second one is, how am I going to do the work I need to be successful? Y'all, majority of the agents work when they get started, and quite honestly, even once they become a veteran agent, is in fact lead generating. Even someone during the day only lead generates so much. There are some exceptions. We have some of the big mega teams that they call people all day long, which I don't like, but that's okay. To each their own. They believe you work 60 hours a week and you call people all day long and bother them. And when you're like, oh, great. That's fine. But there are other ways to lead generate that don't revolve around that type of stuff. It revolves around maybe a happy hour or a volunteer group that you go to consistently. Those things don't have to be done 40 to 60 hours a week. Then, of course, your internal network of friends and family and contacts, nothing stops you from reaching out to them and having marketing plans designed for them in the evening hours. So this stuff about, I don't have enough time, that's a bunch of crap too. By the way, if you were paying attention, I told you a majority of my six-figure agents rarely worked 15 hours a week. Average six-figure agent at least has to be doing probably 3 or 4 deals a month. You're brand new. You're not even looking at doing 4 for the entire year. Even someone in third grade math can do the math there and figure out, maybe I don't have to work that many hours at the point where I'm at. Now, look, I'm not telling you to put your hands up and just say, oh, I'm not doing shit. Nobody said that. But what we are saying is if you think you have to put a full load of marketing to get this thing going, you are out of your mind. That is not true. In fact, some of you are so good at what you do, it just takes the fact of getting your name out there for people to go, I'd use her all the time if she was in real estate.
Well, I never forget that
that take off quicker.
Your current job is your pipeline. You know, that all your employees that you work with, your coworkers,
we actually have
that's
that
your
as a
pipeline.
marketing item. We have that as a marketing item that sometimes we actually like the fact that you have a job because that's where a lot of your first deals come from. I will tell you, my first 8 of them were from the job I was in. That's another shot at a broker who says, oh, you'll never make it. I'm like, I'll put more money on that person than yours. At least that person has a funnel to go to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people that might actually go with them. So it's all perspective as to what you're looking at. But, you know, the fact that where you think that you can't do it, everything I have is because I started part-time. You know, I created SWR to cater to both full and part-time agents. But I especially focused on the part-time because I knew there was a void in the industry. And I knew that some of those guys out there were very good real estate agents. See, you want to talk about something sick. I'd love to know the stat of how many brokers ran somebody off because they told them they can't do it part-time or they won't take them doing it part-time, and then that person never pursued it again. Those numbers have to be astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a shame too, because those just very well might be the better agents that we let go. And that's what I don't get. Because I do believe that some of those agents are smarter than the ones that just jump right into it. You know, I didn't wake up some morning and go, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. Let's do this. I lived it. I knew the pitfalls of doing it part-time. There were some negatives to doing it part-time. So when I built SWR, I made damn sure that those pitfalls weren't there. I just got rid of them. And believe me, there's no one who knows better in this entire industry about doing it part-time and running a brokerage this long that can say those things. And if they are, they are few and far between. That's a very special niche that I had. You can try to replicate it, and you can try to do something like that. It doesn't do a damn bit of good unless you've lived it. You have to be able to tell someone, I know exactly what you're going through. And I can help you with it because I've done it. There's hardly a deal that my guys will bring up to me that I hadn't seen before.
Yep.
There's nothing that we can't accomplish. You can become very good at this, become an expert at it, if you stick it through a time and you have the right training method. You have to have someone who caters to you. And even those that say they'll take a part-time agent, I'll take a shot at them too. There's a big difference between saying you'll take a part-timer versus catering to a part-timer. You can only cater to a part-timer if you have the systems in place. You have to have the systems in place. And if you've never done it yourself, you'll never have the system in place that caters to that individual because you don't know what happens when they're on their own and they have another job and they're having to do both these things. You don't know what that is. You don't understand it, so you can't live it. I saw a brokerage the other day that advertised they were having a dual career meeting for anybody that was considering this, and it was at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. I go, okay. I go, there's number one as to why someone who's never done it can't do that. Because Brent, what is the common sense reason for someone who's part-time having an 11 o'clock on Tuesday?
They're going to be working.
They're working. I laughed so hard that I was like, it's so
ridiculous.
You cannot do that.
We do have a webinar coming up next Tuesday at 6 p.m. You can go to joinswr.com and get signed up for that. It's free.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the webinar is very productive too. We have a lot of people that come on to it and have seen us from somewhere else, and we do a further explanation. I want to end the show with that because that was the whole point of this entire show, is to motivate those of you who either are part-time right now, to give you the message that you can do it, don't give up, and if you need help, you can certainly come to us because we are the experts in that field. Two, if you have friends or family that are thinking about it, and they've been on the fence for the same reasons that we talked about today. You should tell them. They should check this video out. They should look at it. They should say, hey, look, you should listen to these guys. They've done that before. They know what it is they're doing. They're telling you can do it. And that was the whole point of this, is to resurrect the people that really can't have it. Because look, y'all, the truest statement is that real estate is one of the best multiple income stream jobs you can have. It is one of the only jobs in the world you literally probably pay $2,000 a year in cost, but can make 100 to 2 to 300, 400K. It's not going to be instant, but it can happen. And when you start running a business like that, like even the guys that, like Brent doesn't work for me. I mean, he is a peer. He's a friend. I mean, I've shown him how to do it, but in the end, I don't tell him what he has to do. And hell, even if I did tell him what to do, he doesn't have to do it. And sometimes he will tell me to go whatever myself. So it's a job that you don't have to do the typical corporate. You don't have to have the typical BS. You don't have the typical hour BS. And to me, that's as good as it gets. Honestly, I think that everybody should have a real estate license. Even on their own deals, the money they're saving is ridiculous. It's not that hard to do it. And that's something everybody should be thinking about. You ever want help in that, y'all can catch up with us. Like I said, joinswr.com tells you everything about what it is that we do. You know, if you ever wanted to catch up with me personally, it's 214-683-8973. Again, that's 214-683-8973. And I got the easiest email to remember. It's smokerbroker@kw.com. Y'all, I want to thank y'all for watching. Again, great show to watch on replay. Thank y'all for always watching and continuing with the show. We always try to have new topics that are helpful to the real estate industry, and especially in certain segments. Y'all have a great week. Enjoy the start of the spring. We'll see y'all next week.